A lonely old cafe sat on a dark mountain road, its lights flickering as cold wind whipped through the broken windows. Inside, a tired young waitress was closing up alone. Animal cries echoed from the surrounding forest, creating a haunting, eerie atmosphere. Suddenly, 3 thugs appeared. He gripped her wrist so tightly that his bones were grinding. He begged under his breath. The girl began to cry and shout, "Please, please, let me go." The men looked at one another and burst into cruel laughter. Then, all at once, the door slammed open with such force that the entire cafe seemed to shake. A scream erupted, so sharp and powerful that it felt like the ground moved beneath their feet. And then suddenly... Before I continue, make sure you're subscribed and tell me where you're watching this story from. The old cafe stood quietly on the dark mountain road, its lights flickering as if they were struggling to stay alive. Inside, the young waitress wiped the last table, exhausted from a long shift, hoping to lock up and finally go home. The forest outside was making strange movements, sounds she had never heard this close before. She walked toward the door with her keys in hand, trying to ignore the uneasy feeling growing in her chest. But before she could turn the lock, 3 men stepped inside and blocked her path. Their eyes were cold, their smiles unsettling, and the way they spread out around her felt like a trap slowly closing. She backed up until her shoulders hit the wall. "Please, I'm just trying to go home," she whispered. The men exchanged smirks. One of them moved closer. "We just want to talk," he said, but his tone made the words feel dangerous. Her breath trembled as she shook her head. "Please don't do this." The men ignored her fear and locked the cafe door behind them. The room fell silent, filled only with her quickening breaths and the low chuckles of the men surrounding her. She tried to step sideways, but one of them cut her off immediately. Tears filled her eyes. "Please, someone help me." And that was the moment everything changed. The cafe door swung open again. 10 towering female wrestlers walked inside. Long braided hair, powerful shoulders, leather jackets, tattooed arms, and boots heavy enough to shake the old wooden floor. They didn't speak when they entered. They didn't need to. Their eyes locked immediately onto the scene in front of them. The thugs froze. Their confidence drained in an instant. The waitress stared at the women with trembling hope. "Please, help me," she whispered again, barely able to breathe. The leader of the wrestlers stepped forward, her jaw tight, her eyes sharp. She placed herself between the girl and the men, her team forming a protective wall behind her. "Which one of you thought it was a good idea to corner her?" she said, calm but dangerously cold. None of the men answered. None of them even moved. And it became clear in that silent and frozen moment that tonight, nothing in this cafe was going to go the way those men expected. The men stood stiffly, their earlier arrogance melting into something closer to fear. The leader of the female wrestlers didn't take her eyes off them for even a second. Her team spread out behind her, each woman stepping forward just enough to block every possible exit the thugs might try to run through. One of the men swallowed hard and tried to speak, but his voice cracked before the words came out. We were just... The leader raised a hand, stopping him instantly. "Don't lie. We walked in on exactly what you were doing." The waitress stood behind them, clutching her arms tightly, still shaking from the fear that had crawled up her spine. Minutes earlier, one wrestler turned slightly toward her and gave a small, reassuring nod, as if silently promising that nothing would touch her now. 2 wrestlers stepped toward the back of the cafe, checking behind the counter, the storage door, and the hallway. Their footsteps echoed through the quiet room as they searched every corner for anyone else who might be hiding. The place was old, dusty, and filled with broken shelves, as if it hadn't been maintained for years. Another wrestler moved to the front windows, scanning the dark forest outside. "There's movement out there," she murmured. "Someone else was watching." The leader's jaw tightened at the words, and she turned back to the thugs. "Is there someone with you? Answer me." They hesitated, looking at each other nervously, their earlier bravado completely gone. One finally muttered, "We didn't come alone, but he wasn't supposed to follow us inside." The waitress felt her stomach drop. Who?" The wrestler closest to her placed a hand on her shoulder. "Stay behind us, don't move." A faint noise came from the back of the cafe, not loud, but enough to send a chill through the room. The wrestlers all turned their heads slightly, eyes sharp, bodies shifting into defensive positions without needing a single word. The leader whispered, "Something's in the hallway." The thugs immediately pressed themselves against the wall, fear pouring out of them like sweat. "We don't know him," one stammered. "He just shows up. He wasn't supposed to be here." The wrestlers exchanged looks. Their instincts were sharpened from years of fighting and training. Whatever was moving back there wasn't a scared animal or a clumsy intruder. It felt intentional, slow, calculated. The leader took 2 steps forward, her boots steady on the old wooden floor. "We handle this together," she said. "Everyone stay alert." Another rustle. Closer this time. The waitress covered her mouth, holding back a cry. Please don't let him get me." One wrestler leaned down slightly. "He won't. Not while we're standing here." The hallway darkened as something shifted inside it. The wrestlers tightened their formation, shoulders squared, every breath controlled. The room felt smaller, heavier, as if the walls were closing in around all of them. And slowly, the dark outline of a figure appeared at the end of the corridor, tall, still, watching. The leader's voice dropped to a low warning. "Stay behind us." The figure didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there in the dim light, waiting, and the wrestlers knew. Whatever was coming next would change everything about this night. The figure at the end of the hallway didn't move, but the tension in the room tightened like a rope pulled to its limit. The leader took a slow breath, stepping slightly to the front, her body angled protectively toward the waitress behind her. The other wrestlers spread out in a half circle, ready for whatever came next. One wrestler whispered, "He's been standing there a long time. Look at the way he's watching us." Another replied softly, "He's waiting for us to make the first move." The thugs pressed deeper into the wall, terrified. One of them muttered under his breath, "We didn't tell him to come. He just follows us. None of us really know him." The waitress clutched her hands tightly, fear shaking through her legs. "Why is he here? What does he want from me?" Her voice was barely audible. The leader didn't look away from the shadow in the hallway. "We'll find out you're safe. Stay behind us and don't move." One wrestler took a small step forward, stopping just short of the hallway entrance. "Hey, you need to come into the light," she said, her voice steady but demanding. "Show yourself." The figure didn't respond. He simply tilted his head slightly, as if studying each of them one by one. A second wrestler, taller and broader, spoke up. "We're not asking again. Step forward." Still nothing. The leader narrowed her eyes. "He's not coming out. He's trying to pull us in." The wrestlers exchanged a quick glance. They knew traps. They knew when someone wanted to isolate one of them. "We stay together," the leader said. "Nobody moves alone." One wrestler leaned toward the waitress. "Do you recognize him? Ever seen him before?" The girl shook her head, tears building again. No. But those men said they didn't come alone. Maybe he's with them, but he looks different. He looks... She stopped, unable to finish the sentence. Suddenly, one of the wrestlers noticed something near the back window, a shift in the darkness outside. A silhouette slipping behind a tree. There's someone out there too, she whispered. He's not alone. The leader's expression hardened. So it's more than one. The thugs immediately began shaking their heads. No, we swear. We didn't know others were coming. We just thought... Enough, the leader snapped. You've said enough tonight. Another wrestler scanned the room. This cafe, it feels like it's being surrounded. They all felt it now. The air was heavier, colder, like danger was building from every direction. The figure in the hallway finally shifted his weight. A slow step, 1 foot forward, still hidden in the shadow. The leader felt the waitress flinch behind her. Don't look at him, she whispered to the girl. Look at us. Stay with us. Another wrestler moved closer to the thugs. You three aren't going anywhere if he came with you. You're answering for that tonight. One thug shook violently. He doesn't work with us. He just shows up. We're scared of him too. The leader's eyes stayed locked on the silhouette. Then we take control before he does. She lifted her chin, signaling her team. The hallway figure remained silent, still hidden, still watching. And then, with slow precision, he took another step forward. Just enough for them to see the outline of his shoulders. Broad, heavy, intentional. The waitress gasped, her voice cracking. Please don't let him take me. One wrestler leaned close and whispered, He won't, we promise. The leader steadied her breath, her eyes fixed on the shadow. Everyone hold your ground. Because something about the way that man stood there told every woman in the room that he wasn't going to wait much longer. The shadow in the hallway finally moved a little closer, just enough for the light to graze the lower half of his face. His expression was blank, unreadable, as if he wasn't bothered by being outnumbered or confronted. The wrestlers braced themselves, each woman adjusting her stance, preparing for whatever he planned to do next. The leader kept her voice calm. You're not welcome here. If you have something to say, say it now. He didn't reply. He simply tilted his head again, studying them with cold curiosity, as if trying to decide which of them was the real threat. The silence stretched until it became almost suffocating. One wrestler murmured, He's not here by accident. Look at the way he's watching the girl. Another added softly, He followed them. He's after something. Maybe someone. The waitress clung to the back of a chair, her hands trembling. I don't know him. I swear I've never seen him before. The leader stepped slightly to the side, blocking the man's view of the girl completely. You won't see her now either, not while we're here. The figure finally took one slow, steady breath, as if preparing to move, but the wrestlers held their formation. They weren't stepping back. They weren't letting him come closer. Their presence alone made the corridor feel smaller, tighter, and far more dangerous for anyone who dared walk into it. Then one wrestler near the windows whispered urgently, Another one outside, moving right past the trees. 2 more shadows drifted across the glass, barely visible, but definitely human. The leader's jaw tightened. So he didn't come alone. The thugs behind them began shaking uncontrollably. We swear we didn't bring them. We didn't know he would... Quiet, one wrestler snapped. You've said more than enough. The atmosphere in the cafe thickened as danger closed in from both sides. It felt like the walls themselves were listening, waiting for the moment everything would break loose. The hallway figure finally took one more step forward, revealing just enough of his build to show he was strong, much stronger than the men who came before him. The leader didn't blink. You take one more step, she said, "and you're not walking back out." He still didn't speak, but he turned his head slightly as if he heard something behind them, something none of the wrestlers had noticed yet. One wrestler frowned. "What is he listening to?" Before anyone could answer, a faint movement came from the front of the cafe, a shifting shadow near the broken door frame. The wrestlers snapped their attention toward it instantly. Someone had moved outside. Someone close. "There's another one wrestler whispered. "He's right near the entrance." The leader lowered her stance slightly, ready for impact. "We're surrounded from the front and back. No one breaks formation." The waitress covered her mouth, tears sliding down her face. Why is this happening? What do they want from me?" Another wrestler knelt beside her briefly. "You're not alone now. Whatever they came for, they're not getting it." The figure in the hallway shifted again, this time leaning forward just enough to let the dim light catch his eyes. They were cold, sharp, and disturbingly calm. The way he stared made the waitress shiver violently. The leader lifted her hand. "Everyone ready?" The wrestlers tightened the circle around the girl, their bodies acting as a shield, their eyes locked on every corner, every shadow, every unknown. The hallway figure took one more slow step, and the forest outside shifted again, footsteps moving through the leaves, heavier than before. The leader steadied her breath. "Stay close," she said quietly, because whatever was about to happen next, none of them were walking away from it untouched. The footsteps outside grew heavier, circling the cafe like a predator deciding where to strike. The wrestlers stayed exactly where they were, forming an unbreakable wall between the girl and every direction danger could come from. Their breathing slowed, controlled, every muscle ready. One wrestler whispered, "Front, back, and the woods. They planned this." Another nodded, "And they're waiting for the right moment." The figure in the hallway shifted again, this time leaning forward slightly, as if he'd grown impatient. The dim light revealed more of his outline. Broad shoulders, thick arms, someone used to fighting. He didn't seem scared. If anything, he looked prepared. The leader's eyes narrowed. "You're not taking a step closer. Whatever you came for, you walk away from it right now." Still no response. His silence felt heavier than words. The waitress trembled harder. "I didn't do anything. I don't know what they want." A wrestler moved closer to her, her voice gentle but firm. "You don't have to know. Not tonight. We're handling this." Suddenly, another shadow passed quickly in front of the left window, then another on the right. The wrestlers snapped toward the movement instantly, tightening formation again. Two of them stepped closer to the windows, just enough to keep watch without exposing themselves. "They're closing in," one whispered. "Look at the pattern. They're getting ready." The thugs in the corner started shaking uncontrollably. "We told you! We told you he's not with us. He just shows up wherever we go." The leader didn't even look at them. "He's not your problem anymore." The hallway figure finally exhaled, a slow breath that felt like a warning. His weight shifted. His body leaned forward. "He's about to move," one wrestler murmured. The leader lifted her hand slightly. "No one breaks formation. Not until we know who's outside and who's coming in." One wrestler near the front door leaned closer to the cracks in the wood. "They're right outside the entrance. There are at least two." The leader asked quietly, "Weapons?" "Not sure," the wrestler whispered back. "But the way they're moving, they're prepared for a fight." The waitress's voice cracked. "Please, I don't want to be taken. Please don't let them take me." The nearest wrestler knelt just enough to meet her eyes. "They won't touch you, not while we stand here." The wind outside gusted hard, pushing through the broken window frames. The shadows shifted again. The hallway figure stiffened, like he heard a signal. Something unseen passed between him and whoever was outside. The leader sensed it too. They're communicating somehow. One wrestler's voice dropped to a whisper. "This is coordinated. Someone outside is waiting for him to make the first move." The leader's stare hardened. Then he's not getting that chance. She stepped slightly forward, shoulders squared, eyes locked directly on the shadowy figure. "Look at me. If you want her, you go through all of us." Another shift, a slow step. He moved just enough to show he wasn't intimidated. The leader didn't blink. Last warning. A low rumble came from outside, branches snapping under heavy boots. The footsteps were faster now, circling quicker, closing in like wolves tightening their formation. One wrestler whispered, "They're getting ready to strike." Another replied, "Then we hit first if we have to." The hallway man took one more step forward. The wrestlers stepped forward too. Every woman ready, jaws tight, fists clenched. The leader steadied her breath. "All right, stay close. They're about to make their move." And just then, as the shadow in the hallway lifted his foot, the forest outside went silent. A silence so deep that everyone in the cafe felt it. Something was coming. Something bigger than the men they had already seen. And whatever it was, the wrestlers knew they were seconds away from the fight no one could run from. The silence outside the cafe settled so suddenly that even the wind seemed to stop. Every wrestler felt it at the same time, an unnatural stillness, the kind that comes before something dangerous breaks loose. The figure in the hallway straightened his posture, as if he'd been waiting for this exact moment. The leader lowered her voice. "Everyone tighten up. They're not circling anymore. They're positioning." One wrestler glanced toward the window. "There's someone standing directly outside. He's not moving." Another added quietly, "And two more behind the cafe. I can see shadows near the back entrance." The thugs in the corner slid down the wall, holding their heads in fear. "If he gets inside, we're dead. You don't understand. He doesn't talk. He doesn't feel anything." A wrestler cut him off sharply. "Be quiet. We're protecting the girl. That's our only focus." The waitress slowly sank to the floor, pressing her back against the counter, tears slipping down her cheeks. "Why won't they leave? What do they want with me?" The leader finally turned her head toward her. "There's something your father didn't tell you. Something they're here for. But it's not your fault, and you won't face it alone." Before the girl could ask anything, the hallway figure shifted again, this time stepping into the light just enough for them to see his expression. His eyes were cold, focused like someone who had already decided what needed to be done. The leader raised her chin slightly. "You're done hiding. If you have something to say it now." For the first time since he appeared, the man spoke. His voice was calm, almost too calm. "He took something from us." The wrestlers stiffened. One of them asked, "Who? The girl's father?" The man nodded once. "He made a promise. He broke it. And now we've come to collect what's owed." The waitress pressed her hands to her mouth, her voice shaking. "My father wouldn't do something like that." The leader shook her head slowly. "He disappeared without protecting you. That means he left something unfinished." The man in the hallway didn't blink. He left more than that. Before anyone could question him, a sound came from outside the cafe, someone dragging something across the ground, a metal scrape. Slow, heavy, intentional. One wrestler whispered, "Something's being moved, something big." Another added, "They're bringing it to the front door." The leader stepped forward. "We don't wait for them to strike first." The wrestlers spread out, forming two lines, one facing the hallway figure, the other facing the front entrance. Their shoulders were tight, breaths steady, each woman ready for whatever was about to come through that door. The hallway man finally shifted his gaze from the wrestlers to the waitress, and the girl flinched hard. "You shouldn't have been here tonight," he said quietly. The girl choked out, "Please, please don't take me." A wrestler stepped in front of the girl instantly. "You're not taking anyone, and you're not leaving this cafe the way you walked in." The man tilted his head again, as if assessing their strength. "You can't stop what's already in motion." From outside, a soft thud hit the cafe wall, followed by the sound of something being placed, leaned against the wood. The wrestlers exchanged quick glances. They didn't know what it was, but whatever those men were doing outside felt like preparation. One wrestler whispered urgently, "The men outside just stepped back. They're waiting for a signal." Another said, "They're all looking toward the hallway. He's the one they're watching." The leader's eyes hardened. "He's not just part of the group. He's the one in charge." The hallway man slowly lifted his arm, a single gesture, barely noticeable. Outside, someone took a step. The leader spoke immediately. "Everyone get ready." He just gave them the signal. The wrestlers tightened their formation. The hallway figure took one more deliberate step forward. The forest outside went quiet again. And that was the moment all of them understood. Everything in the cafe, everything closing in from outside, everything waiting in the shadows. It was all leading to what would happen in the next few seconds. The moment the hallway figure lifted his arm, everything shifted. The energy in the cafe thickened, the kind of pressure that warns everyone in the room that the next move could change everything. The wrestlers felt it instantly and stepped even closer together, forming a tighter barrier around the girl. One wrestler whispered, "He's signaling them. Something is about to happen." Another nodded. "They're waiting for him to make the first move." The leader watched him carefully. "You think you're walking through all of us? Try it." The man's eyes stayed focused, not on the wrestlers, but on the girl behind them. That alone made every woman in the group tense even more. Whatever he wanted, whatever he came for, it involved her. Before the leader could speak again, a faint vibration moved through the wall behind her, like someone pressing a heavy object against it. The wrestlers exchanged quick glances, then listened. Something was being handled outside, quietly but intentionally. One wrestler near the door murmured, "There's weight against the wall, something big." Another muttered, "They're preparing for something coordinated." The girl's breathing quickened. "Please, please don't let them take me." Her voice cracked with fear. A wrestler leaned closer. "They won't. You're not leaving this cafe without us." The hallway figure tilted his head slightly, studying the formation of the wrestlers with an expression that almost looked impressed. "You're strong," he said, "but you're in the way." The leader took one step forward. "Good. Then we're exactly where we belong." Behind them, the outside shadows shifted again. Someone stepped closer to the front door. Another moved near the side window. The floorboards seemed to tighten under the tension building in every corner. One wrestler whispered, "They're surrounding us fully now." Another added, "He's waiting for the strike point." The hallway man finally spoke again. "Your strength doesn't matter. Your numbers don't matter. He owes something and we came to collect it." The waitress cried softly. "My father wouldn't leave me. He wouldn't do something like this." The leader didn't look back at her. She couldn't afford to. "He should have been here, but he's not. And that means you're with us now." The girl's tears fell harder, but she nodded, clinging to that one promise. The hallway man's expression hardened slightly. He ran. He hid, and he left you behind to face what he started. The girl shook her head, refusing to accept it. He wouldn't. The leader finally glanced back at her. You're not facing it alone. Suddenly, a shadow passed right in front of the large front window. Not fast, slow, tall, deliberate. The wrestlers watched it slide across the glass like someone marking his position. Another shadow appeared behind it. Then another. One wrestler whispered, 3 at the entrance. Another scanned the side. 2 more near the back window. The leader gripped her fists. They're positioning for an entry. Everyone brace! The hallway figure took one more calm step, stopping just at the edge of the light. His face was shadowed, but his voice was clear. It's already begun. Whether you fight or not doesn't change the outcome. The leader lifted her chin. It changes everything, because we fight back. The cafe felt smaller now, as if the walls were pulling inward. The tension was a living thing, crawling across the floor, pushing against the windows, gathering in the doorway. The hallway man lowered his arms. Outside, the shadows froze, waiting. Inside, the wrestlers tightened their circle, ready. The air stood still, and the leader's voice broke the silence. Everyone, stay close. They all felt the same thing. The next move wasn't going to be slow. It wasn't going to be warning. It wasn't going to be cautious. Whatever was coming was going to hit them all at once. The moment the hallway figure lowered his arms, every shadow outside shifted at once. The wrestlers braced instinctively, leaning forward just slightly, bodies locked into a formation so solid that nothing could slip through. The cafe felt like a pressure chamber, every breath heavy, every second stretched thin. One wrestler whispered, "They're getting ready." Another replied, "Then we stand our ground." The leader stepped half a foot forward, her eyes fixed on the hallway man. "You're not getting past us, not tonight." For the first time, the man's expression changed. A flicker of annoyance or calculation crossed his face. He didn't speak, but the shift in his stance said he was preparing to move. The wrestlers tightened their formation around the girl again, shoulders touching, a wall of strength. The waitress clutched the back of a chair, her voice trembling. "Why are they doing this? What did my father do?" The leader finally spoke, her voice softer but steady. "He made a deal he didn't finish, and instead of facing it, he disappeared." The girl's breath broke. "That's not possible. He wouldn't leave me like this." A wrestler leaned toward her gently. "You didn't choose this, and you're not facing it alone." The hallway man took one final step forward, but before anything else could happen, a sharp movement outside caught everyone's attention. A figure was running, fast toward the front door. Another followed. Their footsteps were deliberate, heavy, as if they were coming in with intention. One wrestler snapped, "2 incoming from the front." Another added, "And someone moving around the back." The leader lifted her hand slightly. "We don't move. We hold." The footsteps reached the entrance. The shadow pressed against the door. The wrestlers tensed. But suddenly, the figure outside hesitated. Another shadow moved behind him, then another. Movement shifted in all directions. One wrestler whispered, confused, "They're not attacking." Another said, "Something's changed." The hallway figure tilted his head again, listening to something outside none of them could hear. His expression, until now calm and controlled, shifted into irritation. The leader narrowed her eyes. "What's happening? Talk." The man finally stepped fully into the light. "Your police arrived earlier than expected." The wrestlers froze, listening. In the distance, faint sirens echoed through the mountains. A few seconds later, red and blue lights flashed between the trees outside the cafe. The girl gasped with relief. "Thank God! Thank God!" The hallway man exhaled slowly. It seems this ends differently than planned. One wrestler stepped forward. "You're done, all of you." The hallway figure looked at the girl for a final moment. "He left something behind. Someone else will come for it." The leader's voice cut through the room. "Not while we're here." The man didn't argue. He simply stepped back into the shadows, turning toward the broken window he came from. 2 seconds later, he disappeared into the forest, leaving the other shadows outside scattering at the sight of approaching police lights. The wrestlers remained in formation until the doors burst open and officers rushed in. "Hands where we can see them! Everyone stay still!" The leader raised her hands calmly. "She's safe. The men you're looking for ran into the woods." Police searched the area, securing the thugs and checking the premises. The chaos finally eased, the cafe filling with the sound of radios and hurried footsteps. The waitress broke down, collapsing into tears on the floor. One wrestler knelt beside her. "It's over. You're safe now." The leader sat down next to her, speaking softly but firmly. "Listen to me. You were not left behind because of something you did. Your father ran from his own choices. You didn't deserve this night. You didn't deserve any of it." The girl wiped her face, still trembling. "What happens to me now? I don't have anyone." The leader shook her head. "You have us." The girl looked up at the wall of women surrounding her, each one bruised, tired, but standing strong. "You're not leaving, right?" The leader exchanged a glance with her team. "No, we don't walk away from people who need us." Outside, the first hint of dawn touched the sky, pale and quiet, like the world was slowly waking up from a nightmare. One wrestler crossed her arms. "So, what now?" Another shook her head. "We just leave her here?" A third wrestler answered softly. "No chance." The leader stood and offered her hand to the girl. "You come with us. We'll make sure you're safe, no matter what." The girl took her hand, holding on like she'd finally found ground after drowning. She whispered, "Thank you, all of you. I don't know what I would have done." The leader looked at her with a steady, protective warmth. "You don't have to know you're not alone anymore." The wrestlers walked her out of the cafe, surrounding her on every side, not letting a single shadow near her. The morning light grew brighter, washing over them as they stepped onto the quiet road she had lost everything tonight. But somehow, she gained something stronger. A family she never expected. A protection she never imagined, a strength she never thought she had. And none of them were walking away now. Some nights break people, some nights change people. But this night, it created something no one expected. If this story moved you, if it kept you holding your breath, or if it reminded you that strength can come from the most unexpected places, then don't leave without doing one thing for me. Make sure you're subscribed. And tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching this story from? Your support helps these stories reach more people who might need them, and I have so many more stories to tell you. I'll see you in the next one.